pull. With engineering like a Swiss watch and detailing like a piece of art, Longthorne shotguns will quite literally blow your socks off.
It's nice to make beautiful things that function. It's not often you get to do that with engineering.
Husband and wife, James and Elaine, set up Longthorne 10 years ago.
Are we going to do that?
Yeah.
That's a very good question.
Do you know the answer?
No.
Each one of their custom creations is individually tailored to its owner.
OK, nice and relaxed. Absolutely perfect.
From their understated factory in Northampton, the team produces up to 100 guns a year, with prices ranging from £13,000 to £40,000.
From start to finish, takes around 6 to 12 months to complete it. But the actual physical man hours would be somewhere around 250, 300 hours. And then that might double, depending upon the level of engraving.
Designed for game and target shooting, shotguns are made of 3 main components. The stock, to brace the gun into the shooter's shoulder, the action, containing the mechanism to fire the cartridge, and the barrel, to aim the shot towards the target.
We make our barrels entirely differently to most companies who make guns. Most barrels are fabricated from 2 tubes soldered together. At Longthorne, we make them out of 1 single block of steel. There isn't any soldering, any welding. They start off as approximately a 27 kilogram lump of steel, and we machine them down until they get to about 1.3, 1.4 kilograms.
When we make our barrels, we aim for a tolerance of straightness of somewhere around 20 to 50 microns, which might sound like a big number, but when a piece of human hair is 80 microns, it's quite straight.
And the straighter the barrel, the more accurate the shot.
Once it comes out of that form of machine, eventually it gets to this stage. So it's basically starting to look a little bit more barrel-shaped.
It takes up to 40 hours to machine the shape of the barrel, after which the internal bore is drilled and then sanded to within a few thousandths of a millimetre.
On this machine, it's called a honing machine. It very slowly polishes out the board with a stone and takes it to a very accurate and very polished, finished size.
Each pair of barrels then spends another 40 hours being polished with finer and finer grades of sandpaper.
To be honest, it appeals to my artistic side. I like to refer to this as an art gallery, and what I do is a piece of art. I'm very passionate about it, get a great sense of achievement when we finish something and a customer picks it up, and you see the look on the customer's face is fantastic.
After polishing, the barrels are then bathed in a vat of boiling caustic soda.
Barrels go in silver, and when they've been in for about an hour, then the barrels will come out black.
The caustic soda clings to the steel, creating a porous surface that's then oiled, forming a barrier to stop the steel from rusting. With the barrels all but complete, work can start on the action. The action joins the wooden stock to the barrels. It also contains the gun's trigger and firing mechanism. When pulled, the mechanism ignites explosive powder in the cartridge, firing metal ball bearings called shot down the barrel towards the target. Any defects could spell disaster, so it's critical each one is perfect.
The main stages of the action are we start off with a billet of the raw material. It's a commercial case hardening steel. It's much stronger than what you would traditionally use for an English-made gun. We use this extra strong material because it means we can make the cross sections and the overall sizes of our finished gun much smaller than they would traditionally be, but we've got a much higher strength in it.
And uniquely, the action's complex shape is made out of a single piece of steel.
It's a little bit more difficult to make it that way, and you do need a lot more modern equipment to do it, but the final result is a much better job.
To ensure it's totally accurate, over in the office, 3D modelling is used to make sure the design is spot on.
Before we actually start cutting any real metal, we can simulate it on this machine. So it's really important that we get the action and the dimensions of the action absolutely critical, because it's under such extreme pressure. If we get the design wrong, the action could literally break in half and severely injure the person and obviously damage the gun.
With the digital dress rehearsal done, down on the factory floor, the steel billet is loaded and the cutting programme can start for real. The 5-axis cutting robot can rotate the billet in every direction, shaving the steel down to size with total accuracy. In total, it takes 24 hours to reduce the 7-kilogram billet into an action weighing just 700 grams.
This has just come out the machine and it's been roughed out from the big billet. So now we're going to take it to the heat treatment oven where it's going to be stress relieved at 820 degrees for about an hour and a half.
Heating the steel allows its molecular structure to realign, reducing the stress after machining, making it good and relaxed for the next step.
There's certain features on the action that we can't mill them because they're too difficult and they've got square corners to get into. So we use this machine, it's a spark corroder.
The action is immersed in the bath of special dielectric fluid before the computer moves it into position beneath a graphite electrode.
So the job it's doing at the moment is with an electrode this shape, and we're going to machine out this slot. That tool then fits into this slot and makes the component with that slot in it.
An electrical current is sent through the graphite, creating a high-energy spark that burns away a tiny piece of the action. Around 10,000 sparks a second erode the steel, getting into all the nooks and crannies that other machines can't.
And it takes around 4 hours to do this, but when it's done, it's a very, very accurate slot that you couldn't produce any other way. But when that's finished, the action can be removed from the machine and then it would go to the finishing section where Clayton will polish it up and finish all these fine details.
As well as polishing, the custom engraving is added through a combination of laser and traditional hand carving before work can start on the stock. The stock lets the shooter brace the gun against their shoulder, and each one is custom made, designed to fit the gun's owner like a glove.
This is the wood room at Longthorne. We've got about 600 blanks. This is where our clients come when they first order a gun, and if they want to, they can choose their wood. The wood ranges from very plain pieces to more ornate pieces. We call this burl walnut. Varying prices as well. I mean, they can be very, very expensive. Good burl walnut is quite rare now. The reason we choose walnut is because it's the right density, it has the right patination, it shapes really well, and the grain structure is really nice. So when it's oiled, it really does come up beautifully. After they've chosen their wood, we rough machine it, and we do that with one of our CNC machines in the engineering workshop.
The CNC machines create an oversized stock that's paired with a set of temporary barrels so it can be hand sanded.
Once it finishes in this machine, it looks a little bit like this. It can be clamped onto the action, and then we can hand shape it to the client's requirements.
If it doesn't fit properly, they can't use it properly. To get the rough shape takes about 2.5 hours, but to get the final finish on the stock is going to take us about 3 weeks, depending on the piece of wood that we use. Some of it takes a lot longer. Depending on the porosity of the wood and the grain structure, sometimes it can take 2 months to get the wood to look nice. What we would do is we put a good amount of oil on there, and this normally leave it to dry a little bit longer, but we sand that in. What that's doing now, that's filling up all the grain in the wood. All the very small bits of grain now are starting to get filled with a mixture of oil and its own wood dust. So we'd rub the oil into that a little bit more, and you'll see it starts to get quite a nice shine to it even now. But this whole process of finishing it would take at least 2 or 3 weeks.
When they're eventually finished, the stock, the action and barrels can be assembled. The gun's firing mechanism is made up of over 100 intricate parts that are all made on site and are painstakingly assembled and adjusted. Pulling the gun's trigger releases a spring-loaded hammer that pushes the firing pin into the cartridge loaded in the barrel. The explosive charge in the cartridge ignites firing metal ball bearings called shot out of the end of the barrel, all in the blink of an eye.
It's very satisfying to know that you've taken it through the process from the start to the finish, and you start with your action and everything. It's not engraved at all or anything like that, and then get to the end and you've got the finished product, and when people are saying, oh, that's such a lovely gun and that sort of thing, it's something to be proud of, yeah.
All that's left is a final inspection and a quick polish before it's shipped off to the customer, lock, stock and barrel.